Most people walk through life in a fog, not because they're unintelligent, not because they're incapable, but because they've never taken control of their attention. Before, like, if you want to become dangerously sharp, the first thing you need to understand is that your mindset is not something you're simply born with. It's something you forge. Mental clarity is a form of power. It's the ability to see things as they are, without distortion, without bias, without the internal chatter that clouds your judgment. When you lack clarity, you're reactive, you're tossed around by circumstances, by emotions, by the opinions of others. But when you possess clarity, you become precise. Before like, and the precision is what separates the merely competent from the exceptional. But clarity doesn't come easily. In fact, it demands a kind of inner violence. A stripping away of everything unnecessary. You have to audit your mind aggressively. That means facing the lies you've told yourself for years. Before, like, the excuses, the justifications, the little stories you cling to that keep you comfortable but weak. That's not just uncomfortable, it's painful. It requires you to look in the mirror and admit, I am not what I could be. Not yet. Once you do that, something strange happens. You begin to see where you're wasting your energy. Before, like, you see the hours spent scrolling, the toxic conversations you tolerate, the mental habits that sap your focus. You realize your mind has been fragmented, split into dozens of shallow pursuits, and all of that must go. Because clarity is not multitasking, it is singular, it is focused, and that means saying no more often than you say yes. In psychological terms, this is the transition from a diffuse mode of being to a goal-directed one. You are not just existing anymore, you are orienting. Your perception narrows, not out of limitation, but out of intention. You begin to see life as a series of deliberate moves, before, like, not random moments. That's a radical shift. It's the moment your life stops happening to you and starts happening through you. And this isn't just some abstract self-help theory. It has deep roots in ancient philosophy. The Stoics spoke often about the importance of ruling the inner citadel, the fortress of the mind. Before, like, they believed that true power was not in controlling the world, but in controlling your response to the world. Epictetus said, before, like, you become what you give your attention to. That's not metaphor. That's a law. So you have to train your attention like a muscle. Start by eliminating distractions with surgical precision. Cut the noise. Limit inputs. The more chaotic your mind, the more deliberate your environment must be. This isn't about being extreme for the sake of discipline. It's about creating the conditions where excellence is inevitable. The mind thrives in order, not chaos. From there, identify what matters most to you, your highest aim, not what looks good to others, not what earns you temporary validation. What matters. Anchor yourself to it. Remind yourself of it daily. This is your compass. Without it, you'll be seduced by 1,000 lesser goals. And when your mind is aligned, when your thoughts, actions, and intentions are all pointing in the same direction, you begin to develop what can only be described as psychological sharpness. You move through life with speed and clarity. You cut through confusion. You speak with weight. You become impossible to ignore. So if there's one place to begin, one edge to sharpen first, it's here. In the mind. Before, like, the rest will follow. Sharpen the mind and the blade of your life will never be dull again. If you're serious about becoming dangerously sharp, you need to understand something most people never even consider. Your environment is either sharpening you or it's dulling you. There is no neutral ground. You are always being shaped. Every room you enter, every person you interact with, every sound you allow in, every platform you scroll. It's all acting on you, subtly sculpting your habits, your moods, even your identity. The truth is, we like to think of ourselves isolated minds, rational agents operating independently of the world around us. Before, like, but that's a fantasy. We are embedded creatures, psychologically entangled in the structure of our surroundings. Before, like, the philosopher Martin Heidegger called this our being in the world. You cannot separate who you are from the space you inhabit. That means your environment is not just background. It's instructional. It's teaching you how to think, how to behave, and ultimately, how to live. So the question is, what is your environment teaching you? If you walk into your bedroom and it's cluttered, chaotic, disordered, that's not just a messy space. That's a message. It tells your brain that confusion is acceptable, that entropy is normal. And over time, that message bleeds into your self-concept. You stop aiming upward. You start tolerating mediocrity. And that's a dangerous place to be, because once your standards begin to slip in one area, they don't stay contained. They spread. But the reverse is also true. When you structure your environment with intent, when you strip away what's unnecessary and surround yourself with cues that support your goals, you begin to rewire your brain for clarity, discipline, and forward motion. And you don't even need to rely on willpower to do it, because now your surroundings are pulling you in the right direction. This is why minimalism isn't just about aesthetics. It's about optimization. It's a psychological strategy. Clean space, clean mind. Order out there, order in here. That's not just a motivational slogan. It's backed by neurobiology. Your brain has a limited capacity to process stimuli. When your space is overwhelmed with noise, visual, auditory, emotional, it drains your cognitive bandwidth. But when your environment is quiet, orderly, and purpose-driven, it frees up mental energy to pursue what actually matters. And it's not just about physical space, it's about social space too. Who you keep close matters. Jim Rohn famously said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." That's more than motivational fluff. It's mimetic theory in action. We are imitation machines. Before like, we unconsciously absorb the values, habits, and patterns of the people around us. So if you're constantly surrounded by people who complain, who settle, who mock ambition, you're not just at risk of becoming like them. You already are. So audit your circle, ruthlessly. Choose people who challenge you, not just comfort. Before like, people who hold you accountable. People who make you feel slightly uncomfortable, not because they belittle you, but because their presence exposes the gap between where you are and where you could be. That's the kind of pressure that creates growth. And finally, digital space. This is perhaps the most dangerous and invisible part of your environment. The algorithms you interact with know you better than you know yourself. They feed you what's easy, not what's elevating, so you have to fight back. Unfollow. Mute. Curate your feed like your life depends on it, because in a very real sense, it does. All of this leads to a simple but powerful realization: if you don't shape your environment with intent, it will shape you by default, and rarely in your favor. Design the space or be designed by it. There is no in-between. There's a fundamental truth about human behavior that most people overlook: motivation is fleeting, fragile, and utterly unreliable. We often wait for that surge of inspiration to strike before we start working on what matters, but that's a mistake. If you want to become dangerously sharp, you need to understand that discipline is not a feeling, it's an identity. It's who you are, not just something you do when you're in the mood. Think about it this way. Motivation is like a spark, bright but short-lived. Discipline, on the other hand, is the steady flame that keeps burning long after the spark has faded. The difference between someone who acts and someone who merely dreams is the ability to show up day after day, even when the excitement is gone, even when the work is hard or boring or monotonous. This shift from acting on motivation to embodying discipline is a psychological revolution. It means you stop negotiating with yourself. You stop making exceptions. When you become the kind of person who does what needs to be done, because it's simply part of your nature, you remove the mental friction that so often derails us. Philosophically, this aligns with what Nietzsche called the will to power. But the will to power isn't about domination over others, it's about mastery over yourself. It's about creating order from chaos inside your own being. Discipline is the mechanism of that order. It's the daily commitment to structure your life so that your actions align with your deepest goals, no matter how you feel. Neuroscience confirms this as well. Habits are the brain's way of conserving energy, automating actions so we don't have to waste cognitive resources deciding every time we want to do something. By embedding discipline into your identity, you build strong neural pathways that make productive behavior automatic. You don't need to consciously decide every morning to start working hard. Your brain has been rewired to do it by default. But this rewiring doesn't happen by accident. It requires what we call ruthless consistency. That's not to say you have to be perfect, but you must be persistent. The key is to reduce friction, to create systems and routines that make disciplined action the path of least resistance. This might mean preparing your environment the night before, setting clear priorities, or having accountability mechanisms that keep you honest. And here's something crucial: discipline is not punishment. It's not about denying yourself pleasure. Rather, it's about choosing a higher pleasure, the satisfaction and freedom that come from mastery and progress. When you identify as a disciplined person, your values shift. You begin to see that delayed gratification isn't sacrifice, it's investment. Every small act of self-control compounds over time, sharpening you like a blade. Yet, many people misunderstand discipline because they try to impose it through sheer force of will alone. That approach fails because willpower is a limited resource. It gets depleted. Instead, you want to build identity-based habits, so your discipline isn't a battle you fight every day, but a state you live in. You want discipline to be your default. This is what separates the dangerously sharp from the average. It's the difference between fleeting effort and enduring excellence, and it's accessible to anyone willing to commit. So start by asking yourself, who do I want to be? What kind of person does this kind of discipline come naturally to? Then begin acting as if you already are that person. Each time you follow through, you reinforce the identity. Each time you falter, you learn and recommit. Over time, this cyclical process builds unstoppable momentum. Discipline isn't a destination, it's a daily practice. And it's the foundation upon which all other sharpness is built. Discipline is not a burden to bear, it's the edge that cuts through chaos and propels you forward. Become that edge. One of the greatest illusions we face in the pursuit of sharpness is the mistaken belief that knowledge alone transforms us. We think if we read enough books, watch enough videos, or consume enough information, somehow that will be enough. But the truth is far more nuanced and far more demanding. Knowledge is potential power, yes, but it only becomes actual power when you take the crucial step of applying it. Learning without application is like sharpening a blade and then never using it. It stays blunt in practice. This is where many people get stuck. They gather facts, techniques, strategies, and yet fail to translate that into action. There is a psychological barrier here that often goes unnoticed: the comfort of familiarity. Sticking with what you already know, even if it's ineffective or limiting, is easier than risking the discomfort of trying something new. But if you want to be dangerously sharp, comfort must become a secondary concern. The philosopher William James spoke of the will to believe, the idea that our beliefs and ultimately our actions require a leap of faith. You don't wait until you feel ready. You act as if you are ready, and in doing so, you create readiness. This principle applies directly to learning. You don't wait for perfect knowledge. You act on what you have, learn from the results, and adjust accordingly. This iterative process is what builds not just competence, but mastery. Execution is the crucible where raw knowledge is forged into skill. When you learn fast but hesitate to apply, knowledge stagnates. When you apply fast but refuse to reflect, you're blind to growth. The balance is dynamic. You must create a cycle of rapid learning followed by immediate application, followed by critical feedback and refinement. This is the essence of deliberate practice. Psychologically, this also ties into the concept of growth mindset, popularized by Carol Dweck, the idea that your abilities are not fixed but can be developed through effort and persistence. When you embrace this mindset, failure becomes information rather than a verdict. Each misstep is data, an opportunity to recalibrate, to sharpen further. This openness to learning transforms every experience into a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. At a deeper level, the act of applying what you learn changes your identity. When you read about courage, then act courageously, you become courageous. When you study focus, then practice focus in the real world, your brain begins to wire itself around that capacity. This is the practical alchemy of transformation. It also demands humility. You must acknowledge that you don't have all the answers, and that learning is a lifelong process. But humility is not weakness. It's the intellectual honesty required to face your limitations and expand beyond them. Dangerous sharpness is not arrogance. It's grounded confidence built on the constant cycle of learning and doing. This means you have to be deliberate about how you engage with information. Not all knowledge is equal, and not all application is effective. You must filter, prioritize, and choose actions that have leverage, that move the needle in your life. It's a matter of strategic focus, of understanding where your energy yields the greatest return. So how do you begin? Start by committing to immediate action on every lesson you learn. Don't wait for perfect conditions. Don't wait for total certainty. Experiment boldly, reflect honestly, and adjust rapidly. Measure outcomes, seek feedback, and refine your approach. This cycle turns abstract knowledge into embodied skill and ultimately into wisdom. Remember, the world doesn't reward knowledge alone. It rewards results. And results come from execution. Learn fast, apply faster, and watch as your potential cuts through the noise to become the sharp edge of reality. If you want to become dangerously sharp, you have to recognize that your mind and body are not separate entities. They are intimately intertwined. Before the sharpness you crave in your thoughts, decisions, and presence begins with the condition of your body. Before neglecting your physical self is like trying to sharpen a sword while the blade is rusted and dull. Strengthen your body and you sharpen your edge. Before this is not merely about aesthetics or vanity. It's about the biological foundation for mental acuity. The brain thrives on movement. Scientific research shows that physical exercise promotes neurogenesis, the birth of new brain cells, in areas critical for memory, focus, and emotional regulation. Exercise improves blood flow, oxygen delivery, and balances neurotransmitters. It clears mental fog and resets your nervous system. The truth is, a fit body fuels a sharp mind. Beyond biology, there's a psychological dimension here. When you commit to physical training, you engage in a dialogue with yourself about discipline, resilience, and self-respect. Before like, the challenges you face lifting weights, running, or mastering a skill translate into psychological toughness. Each small victory in the gym or on the track is a metaphor for broader life battles. You build confidence not just in your muscles, but in your ability to endure hardship and improve. Furthermore, your physical presence, your posture, your movement, your energy communicates volumes before you even speak. A sharp mind coupled with a weak, slouched body creates a mismatch. Others will sense your lack of vitality and may unconsciously discount your competence or authority. But when your posture is upright, your gait purposeful, your body conditioned, you exude an aura of command. That presence is not superficial, it reflects the internal order you have cultivated. Before like, this also ties into the idea of embodiment, a concept philosophers and psychologists discuss at length. Embodiment means inhabiting your body fully and intentionally. Before like, it's about being aware of your physical sensations, your breathing, your muscle tone, and using that awareness to anchor your mind in the present. The most dangerously sharp individuals are not just thinkers. They are movers, they engage the world with their whole being. Consider this: the mind can become overwhelmed by anxiety, indecision, or distraction when it's disconnected from the body's grounding signals. Practices that integrate breath, movement, and mindfulness, such as martial arts, yoga, or even simple stretching, can calm the nervous system and sharpen cognitive function. This mind-body coherence becomes a foundation for swift, clear thinking under pressure. There is also a moral dimension to strengthening the body. In ancient traditions, the ideal of the whole person, the philosopher-warrior, emphasized excellence in both mind and body. Strength and fitness were seen as prerequisites for virtue because a person who cannot control their own body struggles to master themselves in broader ways. Strength, in this sense, is not aggression but self-mastery. So where do you begin? You don't need to become an athlete overnight. Start with what's sustainable and progressively challenging. Consistency beats intensity. Walk daily. Practice good posture. Incorporate breathing exercises. Gradually introduce strength training or any form of physical practice that pushes you beyond comfort. Your body will respond by becoming a more reliable instrument for your sharp mind. Remember, neglecting your body dulls the edge you're trying to hone. The mind without the body is like a sword without a handle. It may be sharp, but it cannot be wielded effectively. Before, like, build your body and you build your edge. A sharpened mind lives in a sharpened body. Before, like, if you've been listening closely, you'll see that becoming dangerously sharp is not just about mental clarity, environment, discipline, learning, or even physical strength in isolation. It's about synthesis, the integration of all these elements into a coherent, purposeful whole. Before, like, and at the heart of that synthesis lies a quality often overlooked but absolutely essential: resilience. The capacity to endure setbacks, to absorb blows, and to keep moving forward with grit and grace. Resilience is not simply about bouncing back. It's more profound than that. Before, like, it's about bouncing forward. Growing stronger through adversity, letting difficulty carve your character like a sculptor chisels marble. This is where philosophy and psychology converge again. Nietzsche famously proclaimed, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." But that strength doesn't come passively. It requires conscious engagement with hardship and acceptance of suffering as a teacher rather than an enemy. In psychological terms, resilience is grounded in a mindset of active coping. It's the belief that you have agency in the face of difficulty, that you can influence outcomes through your choices and actions. Without this belief, challenges become overwhelming. With it, challenges become opportunities. Resilience transforms obstacles from stop signs into stepping stones. But resilience isn't merely mental toughness in the conventional sense. It involves emotional regulation, the ability to hold your feelings without being overwhelmed by them, and cognitive flexibility, the ability to adapt your thinking when circumstances change. These faculties allow you to maintain clarity and composure, the hallmarks of sharpness, even under pressure. This capacity is not innate, it's cultivated. And often, it is forged in the fires of repeated failure, loss, and discomfort. The danger is that many retreat from pain rather than approach it. But the paradox is this: before, like, the sharper you want to become, the more you must welcome what you'd rather avoid. You must lean into discomfort, seek out challenges, and expose yourself to experiences that stretch your limits. Philosophically, this echoes the Stoic idea of amorphaty, the love of fate. To embrace life in all its facets, including suffering and loss as necessary parts of your journey. This doesn't mean passivity or resignation. It means actively transforming adversity into fuel for growth. Before, like, it means standing firm when the world tests you. There's also a biological basis to this. Stress, when managed correctly, before, like, triggers homeostasis, a beneficial adaptive response that strengthens your mind and body. But that requires balance. Too little challenge and you stagnate. too much and you break. Resilience is the skill of navigating this tension, of calibrating stress to maximize growth. Practically speaking, building resilience involves habits and practices that strengthen your mental and emotional muscles. This can include mindfulness meditation, journaling to process emotions, deliberate exposure to difficult situations, and cultivating supportive relationships that provide perspective and encouragement. It's also about developing a purpose strong enough to anchor you through storms, a reason why the struggle is worth it. Without resilience, sharpness is brittle. It may dazzle briefly but breaks easily under strain. With resilience, sharpness becomes enduring, adaptive, and profound. It is what turns knowledge into wisdom, effort into achievement, and pain into power. So if you want to become dangerously sharp, don't shy away from the hard things. Face them, learn from them, and let them forge you. Because the ultimate edge is not just in skill or intellect, it's in the resilience to wield them when it counts. Resilience is the steel that tempers your sharpness. Without it, your edge dulls under pressure. With it, you become unstoppable.